No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that human affairs are being keenly watched and closely by intelligence greater than man's own, and yet as mortal as man. These are words of H.G. Wells, a famous science fiction author from the United States. Those words may best describe how he actually viewed the world, how he pictured the politics of America. I have learned that H.G. Wells had predicted a socialism that went beyond statism, that actually included global socialism, international socialism, controlling all international affairs as well as state-run affairs. Tonight I'd like to inform you about the politics of H.G. Wells. Let's start by looking first at the family of this science fiction author. His family greatly influenced how he viewed the world. He was born in a very poor family. They actually inherited money from a deceased relative that was obviously very wealthy. They bought a business that had failed when H.G. Wells was very young. I think that the failure of the business and the fact that they come from a very poor family started engrafting in him a desire to see more control from the government, more subsidies given out to him, to his family. At 8 years old, H.G. Wells broke his leg while playing in a tree. For about a year, he was bedridden. They couldn't even afford medical supplies to actually take care of his leg properly. He actually watched the limp for the rest of his life because of his leg. During that year of being bedridden, his dad would go to a public library and pick up books for him. A lot of those books were science fiction books, history books, books about economics. Even at 8 years old, he had this fascination for reading and a thirst for knowledge. And so to avoid all this isolation, his loneliness of being bedridden for a year, no friends, no money, no real way of taking care of himself, he just read. And so he read and read constantly. By the time he was 17, his mom and dad had separated because of religious beliefs. His mom was a Protestant and his dad was a scientific freethinker. So his dad was basically an atheist who believed that science was a miracle, was a cure for everything. They had left, they had separated. H.G. Wells actually took an apprenticeship working for a textile manufacturer from that point on. About a year into his apprenticeship, he got fired. His boss called him lazy because he would like to read all day and dream about all these things that never existed. So he actually retreated back to his mom. At the time, his mom was living at basically a halfway house, basically a house for women that were single. So he moved into this house with his mom, and during that time, they had all these books available. Some of the books that he really enjoyed and was really influenced by was such books as Plato's Republic and Thomas More's Utopia, both books who have very strong socialistic themes. And at the age of 17, he processed his books, and this is how he viewed the world, through the lens of these two authors and these two books. Really demonstrated what he thought the world should look like. So now that we've looked at the basic childhood, the early years of H.G. Wells, I wanted to move on to his education, to move on to what he was a part of in college and what he went on to pursue after he left his mom's place. He won a scholarship to the Royal College of Science at the age of 18. He joined the debating society of that school a year later. He got introduced to the Fabian Society. The Fabian Society was an intellectual group of young socialists at this college. Believed that, again, that the government should be taking care of the poor within inside of its borders and protecting the rights of the downtrodden. Of course, this is very appealing to H.G. Wells since he grew up in a very poor family. Had experienced a lot of loneliness, a lot of isolation. Had experienced a tragic breakup between his mom and his dad over science, over politics. He left the Fabian Society 2 years later because he believed that their vision was too small. He believed that their idea of socialism wasn't big enough, that it could have grown, it could have actually become more powerful, and it could have actually cared for more people. He eventually lost his scholarship because he had no interest in geology. He basically wouldn't do any of the work, and that was required inside the school, so they kicked him out of school. So now we've looked at the basic education of H.G. Wells, and we can see that it's affected his politics. Let's look at what he actually believed when it came to socialism. From all of his experience in family life, H.G. Wells had a moderate view of socialism, a moderate view that the government should be taking care of the downtrodden, the poor. He believed in a type of socialism called world government, which he believed was unavoidable. It would happen given the certain amount of time. World government would be a political body that would make, interpret, and enforce international law. A world government would add another level of administration over existing governments, over existing states. It would control the technology of every state and make it global. It would control the economics, it would control the food supply, control everything and make everything global, and to protect all the borders inside of each different nation. This world government was obviously a much more radical idea of socialism than what most of his friends in the Fabian Society had in college. This would supersede the authority of state and national socialism. So, in conclusion, I just wanted to point out a verse in one of H.G. Wells' books. He had said, "In the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king." In this case, the statement sums up his family, his education, his politics, and he believed that any form of government besides world government was inferior. So,